Dr. John MacArthur, when we met together, we agreed that the ECT document, the Evangelicals and Catholic Together document, was attempting to join Roman Catholics and Evangelical Protestants together as co-belligerents, the word that Francis Schaeffer coined, working at the grassroots level in terms of social issues. And we were going to work together against the many social evils, including secular humanism, the rising tide of Islam, pornography, abortion, and things like that. But we also agreed that this work has been perceived as going too far in proclaiming the kind of unity that exists. I'd like you to define the kind of unity that can exist between evangelicals and Roman Catholics, and the kind of unity that cannot exist until the doctrine of justification by faith alone has been dealt with clearly.
Well, I might be a little bit radical on this, but I'll go ahead. I think the way we can work together on it is for the Catholics to work against those things like they want to work against them, and we'll work against those things like we want to work against them, but we can't really throw our arms around each other in a common effort, because that confounds the issue of spiritual truth. Look, if the Catholic Church is already a co-belligerent, if they're already anti-abortion and pornography and homosexuality, they're going to use all of their energies within the framework of their system to go after that. We're committed to that, and we're going after that. There's already a collective movement. Once you then sort of try to define that as common spiritual mission built on common spiritual unity, you just take doctrine and throw it out the window. And perception is violated, particularly because the Catholic Church claims to be true Christianity. And when we reverse 450 years of history and just throw our arms around the Roman system, which I think we have to say, John, in all honesty, is not a group of wayward brothers, but is an apostate form of Christianity. It is a false religion. It is another religion. When you throw your arms around that, you literally have to undo any doctrinal distinction. And in fact, ECT doesn't just do that implicitly, they do it explicitly. In the document, in effect, they say we have to accept all baptized Roman Catholics as brothers and sisters in Christ. And in an article that followed that up in Christianity Today, J.I. Packer said, we should acknowledge as brothers and sisters in Christ anyone who lives to the highest ideals of their communion. My response to that is the opposite. I maybe could fellowship with a bad Roman Catholic. That is, one who rejected the system but was still in the church and came to know Christ. But one who holds the highest ideals of Roman Catholicism, on what grounds do I have spiritual unity? And when you get spiritual leaders from both churches coming together to sign a common effort, you may say it is to fight a cultural war, but people are going to see it as confusion over doctrine.
That's why we put in paragraph 1 in this new doctrinal statement, which, let me read it. Our parachurch cooperation with evangelically committed Roman Catholics for the pursuit of agreed objectives does not imply acceptance of Roman Catholic doctrinal distinctives or endorsement of the Roman Catholic Church system.
And that's important, John, that Chuck and Dr. Packer and Bill Bright wanted to make that point clear. I just want to comment on John's statement that he prefaced by saying it was a little bit radical, you know, like being a little bit pregnant, I think. Because when somebody on national television representing evangelicalism makes the comment that in their opinion or their judgment the Roman Catholic Church is apostate, it's not a true Christian community, in this day and age of tolerance and pluralism and relativism and the milieu of irenic, peaceful, gentle coexistence. We live in a world that's fed up with theological controversy and disputes and divisions and all of that. See, we don't live back in the 16th century where people burned each other at the stake over that. For John MacArthur to make a statement like that about the Roman Catholic Church, which is the largest professing body in the world that claims a Christian position, it's just plain inflammatory, incendiary, and and will provoke a howling outcry of people. He's going to get an enormous amount of mail for saying that, John. You know that. You know. And because in our day,
I want the punchline. What's the punchline?
Is this, John, that the one thing that the spirit of tolerance of our day cannot tolerate is intolerance. Because relationships have become more important than truth. Now, what's at stake here? If I understand the New Testament, where the Apostle Paul writes to the Galatians and says, if anybody, if it's Peter, if it's Barnabas, if it's an angel from heaven, teaches any other gospel, let him be anathema. That's not Sproul, that's not MacArthur, that's not Kennedy, that's not Ankerberg. That is the apostolic position. And Paul wanted to make sure that he made himself clear, so he repeated that. And then he goes on to say that he had to resist Peter himself, as Peter started to crack and compromise and negotiate the gospel.